The galaxy was silent, yet the silence carried the weight of chains. Across countless worlds, humans toiled under alien masters. They were scattered, broken, but not destroyed. The Council of Worlds had spoken long ago, its judgment final. Humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too wild to be allowed freedom. Their solution was simple: enslave them all. Billions of men, women, and children were sold like cattle. They mined crystal on desert planets, built ships for alien warlords, and served in palaces as nothing more than tools. The galaxy watched and profited, every species gaining something from Earth's downfall. In the deep corridors of alien starships, the cries of humans echoed. A boy no older than 12 was dragged by armored guards as his father shouted in rage, only to be beaten down. The boy's small hands clenched into fists as he swore silently that he would never forget this moment. Far away, a mother comforted her daughter, whispering through tears that Earth's name must never be forgotten. Even in chains, the humans whispered, passing old songs and hidden messages, reminders of who they once were. The aliens thought humanity had been crushed forever. After all, their fleets were shattered, their cities burned, their homeworld scarred. Earth was nothing more than a broken planet surrounded by enemy watchtowers. But within the ruins something dangerous remained. It was not weapons or armies. It was memory. It was rage. It was the refusal to vanish. The Council celebrated their decision. In their great chamber, lit by blue fire, alien leaders raised their hands in agreement. Humans were property now. "They are tools," one alien said. "They are fuel," another laughed. And still, no one dared to question the morality of it. To them it was order, stability. To them, Earth's destruction was the price of galactic peace. Yet in the shadows, humanity was not silent. Inside the dark mines of Rassilon, slaves scratched words into the stone. "One day we rise," on the frozen world of Krith. A human overseer slipped food to a starving child and whispered, "Remember Earth." In secret, in quiet corners of the galaxy, humans carried something the aliens could not destroy: hope. The story of their suffering spread even among the aliens. Some races pitied them, but remained silent out of fear. Others mocked them, telling their children bedtime tales about how dangerous humans had once been, monsters who nearly burned the galaxy. They called them beasts in chains, warning that humans without collars were too deadly to exist. But the more they spread these stories, the more they accidentally reminded the galaxy of humanity's strength. A single spark of rebellion began in a slave ship orbiting the moon of Draveth. A man who had once been a soldier broke his shackles with nothing but his own strength. He looked at his fellow captives and said nothing, but his eyes told them everything. They were not broken. That story passed from world to world, growing larger with each telling. The aliens dismissed it as rumor, but whispers were harder to kill than bodies. The chains of Earth were heavy, but in every link of iron there was anger that grew sharper with every passing year. Children grew up knowing nothing but servitude, yet in their hearts they carried the stories of their ancestors. They were told of Earth's oceans, of the blue sky, of the mountains where humans once stood free. These tales were not just memories. They were fuel. The Council believed time would erase all resistance. They believed that within a generation humans would forget freedom entirely. But time did not erase. Time sharpened. Time burned. Time carried pain forward until it became a weapon. In the quiet corners of alien palaces, human servants stared at their masters and imagined the day when power would shift. In the depths of factories, tired workers dropped tools into hidden caches, preparing for a future strike. And in the farthest corners of the galaxy, rumors began. Rumors of ships that did not belong to any alien fleet. Ships built in secret by human hands. The aliens laughed. They called such tales impossible. "Humanity is broken," they said. "Humanity is finished," but they did not see the sparks hidden in the ashes. They did not see the anger carried by every enslaved man, woman, and child. They did not see the vow whispered across the stars. One day, the chains would burn, and so the galaxy turned its back, blind to the storm that was coming. Every species had taken part in Earth's fall. Every species had taken part in the trade of human lives. They believed the story was finished, that humanity was only a page in history now. But deep in exile, in darkness, something was being written. Humanity was not erased. Humanity was waiting. The judgment of Earth had not yet begun. The galaxy slept comfortably, believing humans were nothing more than tools scattered across alien worlds. Slave markets thrived, overseers grew rich, and alien empires fed on the labor of broken men and women. But in the shadows, something began to stir. It did not start with armies or fleets. It began with whispers, quiet, dangerous whispers that moved faster than light. On the industrial world of Joral, alien guards discovered a shipyard reduced to ruins. No one knew who attacked. Surveillance showed only shadows moving in the night, striking fast, then vanishing without a trace. The council blamed pirates, but deep inside, their leaders grew uneasy. Pirates did not carve words into the metal remains of starships. Yet there it was, scratched deep into the steel. The chains will burn. Among the slaves, fear turned into excitement. In the mines of Seraph, workers passed secret messages on scraps of fabric. "They are here," one note said. "They have returned." But who were they? No one knew for certain. Some believed it was humans who had escaped the chains. Others whispered about old captains who had once led Earth's fleets, now risen from the ashes to strike back. The truth was both more simple and more dangerous. Survivors had never stopped fighting. Hidden in asteroid belts and abandoned colonies, they had rebuilt piece by piece. A broken freighter became a carrier. Scrap metal became weapons. Former slaves became soldiers. They had no grand armies, only fragments of war machines and the will to use them. But for the galaxy, that was enough. On the rim world of Vorth, an overseer disappeared without a trace. The next morning, the slaves were gone too, leaving behind nothing but empty chains. Alien patrols searched the deserts for weeks, finding nothing but sand and silence. What they did not know was that those humans were already far away, hidden inside a growing fleet. The council gathered in secret, their voices tense. One alien leader slammed the table with his claws. "This is nothing but rebellion. Crush them and it ends." Another leader hissed back, "We tried to crush them once. Look what happened." The chamber fell silent. Memories of Earth's war still haunted them. For the humans, every raid was not just about survival. It was a message. They struck supply lines, destroyed slave transports, and vanished before fleets could respond. Each attack freed more of their people, swelling their numbers. Slowly, the scattered sparks began to form a fire. A young girl, freed from the mines of Tharos, stared at the stars for the first time in her life. She asked her rescuer, a scarred soldier with tired eyes, "Where are we going?" He answered with a grim smile, "Home." The word felt strange, almost forgotten, yet it gave her hope. Hope spread faster than fear. Stories traveled across slave camps, whispered in the dark when guards were gone. They spoke of ghost ships, black and silver, moving silently through space. They spoke of humans with fire in their eyes, carrying weapons older than the council itself. The aliens dismissed it as myth, but deep inside, even they began to wonder. On a distant station, an alien warlord inspected a piece of wreckage brought to him. It was part of a destroyed patrol ship. His claws traced the letters carved into the hull, "Earth lives." His advisors urged him to ignore it, to call it vandalism. But the warlord felt a chill. He had fought humans once, long ago. He remembered their ferocity, their refusal to surrender. If even a fraction of them had survived, the galaxy was not safe. Meanwhile, the humans in hiding grew bolder. They were not content with striking patrols. They began targeting supply depots, slave auctions, and even planetary governors. Their methods were brutal, precise, and merciless. They did not fight like rebels. They fought like hunters. In the halls of power, fear spread. Alien merchants begged for protection. Politicians demanded answers. Armies mobilized, sending fleets to hunt ghosts. But every time they arrived, the humans were already gone. It was as if the galaxy itself conspired to hide them. For the enslaved, the change was clear. Where once there had been silence, now there was fire. Where once there was despair, now there was belief. Children grew up hearing stories not just of Earth's past, but of Earth's return. The chains of slavery still bound their bodies, but not their minds. The Council tried to dismiss it. They said it was small. They said it was temporary. But each passing month, more ships vanished. Each passing week, another colony burned. The whispers grew louder. The galaxy was beginning to realize something dangerous. Humanity was not finished. On a cold night in the orbital mines of Valreth, an old man whispered to his grandson, "Do you hear them?" The boy looked confused. "Hear what?" The old man smiled faintly. The sound of chains breaking, and somewhere in the darkness of space, a human fleet prepared for its next strike. Their message was simple. The galaxy had enslaved Earth. Now it would face humanity's wrath. The galaxy believed the rebellion was nothing more than smoke, loud, visible, but harmless. They told themselves the humans were too few, too weak, too scattered to be a real threat. But smoke always meant fire, and that fire was spreading. It began in whispers, then in raids, but now it was something else entirely. Humanity was striking openly. On the trade world of Elvran, dawn broke with the usual bustle. Alien merchants filled the sky with ships carrying slaves, crystals, and rare metals. Markets roared with trade, buyers shouting as if the suffering of humans meant nothing more than profit. Yet when the sun reached its peak, silence fell. A fleet of black ships emerged from the void. Their hulls marked with a symbol long thought erased, the emblem of Earth. The alien fleet stationed there rushed to intercept. But within minutes, their ships burned like falling stars. Survivors spoke of the attack with trembling voices. They described humans who did not fear death, warriors who fought as if every strike carried the weight of centuries of pain. They described silent ships that moved like predators, vanishing and reappearing with precision. And worst of all, they described how the humans freed every captive before disappearing into the void, leaving only destruction behind. The Council of Worlds convened in desperation. For the first time in decades, their voices shook. "They are nothing but ghosts," one shouted. "Then why do our fleets burn?" Another answered. In that vast chamber of blue fire, silence followed. They could no longer dismiss the truth. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was hunting. Across alien colonies, panic grew. Slave masters tightened security, fearing escape. Merchants hired mercenaries to guard their cargo. But none of it mattered. The humans struck where they pleased. On Koran, they stormed a mining colony, destroying guard towers and arming the workers. On Velthar, they hijacked entire transports, flying them into human-controlled space. Each victory spread like wildfire, and with it came a terrifying realization. The enslaved were becoming soldiers. A young boy, once chained in the pits of Serath, now held a weapon in his trembling hands. A human commander knelt before him and said, "You are free. Now fight for the next child." That boy was no longer a slave. He was part of something greater, part of the storm that was rising. Alien generals studied human tactics, but none of it made sense. The humans did not fight to hold territory or build empires. They fought to bleed their enemies, to remind them of every crime committed. They struck fast, disappeared, then struck again, leaving only ruin and whispers. To the galaxy, they seemed less like soldiers and more like avengers. The broadcasts began soon after. Across alien networks, signals were hijacked by human hands. Screens once filled with propaganda now showed images of suffering, chains, whips, broken families. And then a voice, calm but full of iron, spoke, "We remember. Judgment is coming." Entire worlds froze at the sound. Aliens who once laughed at human weakness now lowered their eyes in fear. An alien governor, arrogant and cruel, stood before a crowd promising that humans were nothing but vermin. Hours later, his palace exploded into flames. His body was never found, but on the ruins carved deep into the stone were words in a language the galaxy thought forgotten. Earth lives. On the rim of known space, a massive slave convoy disappeared. Thousands of humans vanished without a trace. Rumors spread that they were taken not by pirates, but by the Wrath fleet itself. Those thousands did not remain captives. They became soldiers, mothers training their children to fight, fathers teaching them how to fly ships built from scrap. The galaxy had turned humans into tools, but now those tools were weapons. Every lash of the whip, every scar, every humiliation was now forged into fury. And fury was something no empire could contain. The Council tried to respond with force. They gathered fleets larger than anything seen since Earth's fall. But when they launched their assault into the black, they found only silence. Human ships had already moved, striking elsewhere, leaving the great fleets chasing shadows. Alien admirals raged, but they could not catch an enemy who fought like smoke and fire. For the enslaved still waiting, hope became faith. They believed the humans would come for them. They believed no chain was permanent. On planets where despair once ruled, songs began. Songs of Earth, sung in whispers, passed from generation to generation. These songs were not about the past anymore. They were about the future. An alien officer captured during a raid begged his human captors for mercy. His voice shook as he asked, "Why are you doing this? Why not let the past die?" The human commander looked into his eyes and answered with chilling calm, "Because you never let us live." From the shadows, humanity was shaping something greater than rebellion. They were shaping judgment. A storm was gathering, and its thunder echoed across the stars. The galaxy had enslaved Earth. Now it would learn what it meant to face Earth unchained. The galaxy trembled. For the first time in living memory, alien empires who had once mocked humanity now spoke its name in whispers. Trade routes faltered. Slave markets grew empty, and entire worlds once rich with human labor were silent. The rebellion had grown beyond whispers and raids. It had become a firestorm. The humans were no longer shadows. They were vengeance walking in flesh and steel. On the agricultural planet of Arveth, fields once worked by human hands lay abandoned. Overseers had fled, terrified by rumors that the Wrath fleet was coming. No one had seen the humans yet, but fear alone emptied villages. Fear alone stopped production. It was the first sign that humanity's war was not just with weapons, but with the very spirit of the galaxy. Then came the strikes. Entire systems burned within hours. A shipyard in the Zithar sector went silent. Caravans carrying minerals never arrived at their ports. Planetary governors sent desperate pleas for reinforcements, only to discover their fleets destroyed before help could come. Humanity was not just striking. They were dismantling the galaxy's wealth, piece by piece. Alien historians later wrote that it was not humanity's ships that terrified them most. It was their eyes. Survivors described humans as relentless, filled with something no other species could imitate. They did not fight for glory nor for conquest. They fought with purpose, with the fury of a people who had suffered too long. Each blow was not just war, it was judgment. On the planet Krolvar, thousands of humans were liberated in a single night. They emerged from the mines pale, starved but alive. As they stepped into the light of freedom, they were met not with pity, but with weapons. Commanders handed them rifles and armor, saying simply, "The war needs you." And they joined without hesitation, their anger greater than their exhaustion. Former slaves became soldiers. Former workers became avengers. Their chants filled the camps. No more chains. No more chains. News of these uprisings spread faster than light. Even species who had never owned slaves began to panic. The galaxy had been built on Earth's suffering, and now the foundations were cracking. Merchant guilds collapsed as their profits vanished. Warlords lost their thrones when the humans they once commanded rose against them. Even the proudest empires could not deny it. The galaxy was beginning to bleed. The Council of Worlds gathered again, this time with desperation on their faces. Their chamber, once filled with arrogant voices, now echoed with fear. "We must end them," one leader shouted, "before they end us all." But another voice, older and wiser, replied, "You cannot kill what refuses to die. Humanity has already won their freedom. We are only choosing how much of our galaxy survives their wrath." Still, greed outweighed caution. Fleets were dispatched, thousands of ships armed to the teeth. They descended on human-controlled space, expecting to crush the uprising once and for all. But when they arrived, they found emptiness. The humans had moved again, striking elsewhere. The mighty fleets returned home, only to discover their own colonies burning. Humanity fought like smoke and flame, impossible to hold, impossible to predict. And then came the broadcasts. Across every screen, every projector, every comm channel, humanity's voice broke through. It was calm, cold, and terrifying. You enslaved us. You broke our children. You sold our blood as profit. Now the scales are balanced. For every chain, a world will burn. For every lash, a fleet will fall. Judgment is not coming. It has already begun. The message played again and again until no alien could ignore it. On the rim world of Thalon, alien children hid as their parents packed belongings in silence. Merchants abandoned their shops. Entire cities were left empty, not because humans had arrived, but because everyone feared they soon would. Terror became a weapon sharper than any blade. Some aliens begged for peace. Small nations, who had once followed the council out of fear, now reached out in secret, sending envoys with trembling hands. But humanity's response was chilling. We remember who chained us. We remember who watched and did nothing. There will be no peace until judgment is done. On a battlefield above the gas giant of Vera, alien soldiers surrendered before a single shot was fired. They dropped their weapons, hands raised, begging for mercy. The humans took them captive, not as slaves, but as witnesses. They forced them to watch as their overseers were tried and executed for their crimes. Judgment was not blind, it was deliberate. Humanity wanted the galaxy to see. A scholar on the council tried to explain it. They are not just fighting us. They are teaching us. They want us to remember this war for generations. And she was right. Every strike, every raid, every battle was a lesson. Humanity was rewriting the laws of the galaxy with blood and fire. Alien empires that once saw themselves as eternal now faced collapse. Their treasuries emptied, their fleets vanished, their colonies fell into ruin. And yet humanity showed no sign of slowing. They were not seeking power. They were seeking balance. Their fury was not random. It was justice sharpened into war. As the fires spread, a terrifying truth settled over the galaxy. This was not rebellion anymore. It was judgment. The kind that could not be bargained with. The kind that could not be stopped. Humanity had risen from chains, not just to survive, but to make the entire galaxy answer for what it had done. And somewhere in the depths of space, beneath the banner of Earth, a commander spoke the words that echoed across 1,000 systems. We were slaves. Now we are your reckoning. The Council of Worlds had never been so divided. Their grand chamber, once filled with the smug certainty of rulers, now shook with voices of fear. Alien leaders shouted over one another, their words bitter and frantic. Some demanded that all fleets unite to crush humanity once and for all. Others whispered that it was already too late. The galaxy they had built on chains was crumbling, and at the center of that collapse stood humanity, once broken, now unyielding. In the archives of the Council, records told of Earth's final days of freedom. Those records described human fleets shattered, cities burned, leaders executed. To the galaxy, that had been the end. But now those same humans had returned, carrying scars that had hardened into steel. What the aliens could not understand was simple. Humanity had nothing left to lose. A species with nothing left to lose was the most dangerous enemy of all. The Council called for a massive military campaign, assembling fleets greater than any seen since the fall of Earth. Ships from dozens of species formed an armada, their banners flying in grim unity. They told themselves that this time would be different, that overwhelming numbers would crush the humans before their fire could spread further. But deep inside, doubt lingered. Humanity had already humiliated them at every turn. Meanwhile, in the shadows of space, the Wrath fleet grew stronger. Every raid freed more captives, and those captives became soldiers overnight. Starved miners, broken servants, and scarred children all took up arms with a singular purpose: vengeance. Weapons were no longer in short supply. Each liberated factory, each captured convoy added to the arsenal. Humanity was turning its chains into blades. The broadcasts intensified. Across alien networks, images of human suffering flooded screens once more. Viewers saw children in cages, families torn apart, men and women whipped into the dust. The galaxy had known all of this, but seeing it now, through human eyes, twisted the knife. Then came the voice, calm, cold, and merciless. "We remember. The judgment you feared is here. There is no escape." On worlds that had once thrived on slave trade, panic took root. Merchants tried to flee with their wealth, only to find their ships captured. Governors ordered armies to stand guard, but those armies often surrendered before the first shot. Even alien civilians, who had once laughed at human misery, now begged their leaders for protection. They had all profited from Earth's pain. Now Earth's pain had become their sentence. The Council dispatched their great armada to the Vera sector, a region where humans had struck often. The fleet numbered in the thousands, stretching across the void like a wall of steel. Alien commanders boasted that no force could stand against them. But when the humans finally appeared, their ships did not charge. They danced. Small squadrons darted in and out, tearing at the edges, vanishing before retaliation. Mines hidden in asteroid fields detonated without warning. Supply ships vanished in the dark. The massive fleet could not pin them down. Days turned to weeks, and morale shattered. By the time the fleet limped back to Council space, hundreds of ships were gone, their crews broken by enemies they barely saw. For the enslaved watching from the shadows, this was more than victory. It was proof. Humanity was not just surviving, they were winning. On countless worlds, slaves lifted their heads for the first time, whispering, "Soon." Inside the council chamber, desperation replaced arrogance. One leader cried, "We should beg for peace." Another snarled, "They will never forgive us." A third shouted, "Then we fight to the last." But even their greatest minds could not answer the truth. The galaxy had enslaved humanity, and now humanity's wrath was beyond control. Across alien cities, protests broke out. Ordinary citizens, once content to ignore human suffering, now demanded answers. Why had their leaders enslaved a people so dangerous? Why had they provoked a species that never forgot? But the leaders had no answers. All they had was fear. The humans continued to press forward, but their war was not mindless. They targeted worlds that had profited the most from slavery, striking at the wealthy and the powerful. Each planet that fell sent shockwaves through the rest of the galaxy. It was not conquest. It was judgment delivered with precision. On one liberated world, a young soldier asked his commander if victory was close. The commander shook his head. "Victory? No, this is not about victory. This is about justice." The boy did not understand, but in time he would. For the humans, this war was not about reclaiming lost glory. It was about making every species feel what Earth had endured. The Council's spies reported that the Wrath fleet now numbered in the tens of thousands. Each ship carried survivors turned warriors, their rage a weapon sharper than any blade. And still, more captives were freed every day. The humans were no longer a rebellion. They were becoming an unstoppable tide. In the dead of night, on a hidden frequency, a message reached every corner of the galaxy. "You chose slavery. We chose vengeance. Now you will face judgment." The word struck harder than any fleet. For the first time, alien leaders realized the truth. Humanity was not asking for peace. Humanity was not asking for freedom. Humanity was delivering a sentence. As the Council fell deeper into chaos, their enemies grew bold. Rival species, who had once feared humanity, now feared their own neighbors. Old alliances broke. Trade collapsed. The galaxy was unraveling, and all of it traced back to the chains they had once placed on Earth. And still, somewhere in the dark, humanity prepared for the next strike. The Council could scream, fleets could march, but nothing would stop what was coming. The storm had only begun, and its name was judgment. The stars burned with war. Entire sectors that had once thrived on trade and power now lay in ruins. The Council's fleets were scattered, their proud banners torn down. Everywhere whispers of a single truth echoed. Humanity had returned, and judgment followed with them. What began as scattered strikes had grown into a storm that no empire could withstand. The galaxy had chained Earth. Now the galaxy itself was in chains of fear. On the rim world of Droth, an alien warlord stared at the night sky from his fortress. He had once commanded thousands of human slaves. He remembered their cries, their broken bodies, the way they never begged for mercy. And now, as thunder rolled across the heavens, he realized those same humans were coming. The Wrath fleet emerged from the void like a shadow made of fire. Black ships with silver insignias surrounded the planet, blotting out the stars. The warlord screamed for his armies to stand ready, but deep inside, he knew it was already over. Human soldiers landed not as liberators, but as executioners. They moved with cold precision, storming the fortresses, tearing down the banners of their old masters. In the town squares, humans who had once been slaves dragged overseers from their hiding places. Chains that had bound them for decades were thrown into the fire. The message was clear. This was no longer rebellion. This was retribution. Across the galaxy, scenes like this repeated. On Lerath, slave markets were reduced to ash. On Veros, factories that once built weapons from human labor exploded in firestorms. Entire fleets surrendered before battle began, their commanders too afraid to face the humans. In some places, alien civilians fled their own rulers, fearing that sheltering them would draw humanity's wrath. Terror had become a weapon sharper than any blade. The Council of Worlds, broken and desperate, called for one final stand. They sent their last armada, thousands of ships from dozens of species, into the darkness to meet the humans head-on. They told themselves it was for survival, for dignity, for the future of the galaxy. But when their armada reached the battlefield, their hope died. The humans were waiting. Their fleet stretched across the stars, no longer hidden, no longer scattered. It was a wall of black steel, forged from the remnants of slavery and rage. The two forces stared at each other across the void, silence hanging heavy. Then, without warning, the humans struck. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Alien fleets unleashed firepower enough to destroy planets, but the humans moved with fury and precision. They darted between enemy lines, tearing ships apart piece by piece. Alien commanders screamed orders, but confusion spread faster than discipline. The humans did not fight to win territory. They fought to shatter hope. Every alien ship destroyed carried a message. This was not a war for survival. It was a war of judgment. In the middle of the chaos, a single broadcast cut across all channels. It showed the face of a human commander, scarred and cold, his eyes burning with fury. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of 1,000 years of pain. You enslaved us. You profited from our suffering. You believed humanity would vanish in chains. But we do not vanish, we endure. And today, we judge. His words reached every soldier, every citizen, every leader. For many, it was the last thing they ever heard before their ships burned. Entire fleets surrendered, but the humans did not always accept. On some occasions, mercy was given, captives spared, civilians freed. But to the rulers, the profiteers, the merchants who had built empires on human backs, there was no mercy. They were dragged from their thrones and forced to face the wrath they had sown. Humanity made sure the galaxy remembered their crimes, carving their names into history with fire and steel. On the Council's capital world, chaos erupted as the Wrath fleet arrived. Towers of glass and stone crumbled under orbital bombardment. The chamber where leaders had once voted to enslave Earth became a prison for those same leaders. There, under the shattered roof of their empire, they faced the final judgment of humanity. Some begged for mercy, others tried to justify their crimes. But the humans only answered with silence and steel. For the enslaved who had survived, it was a day of fire and tears. Families were reunited, children freed, chains shattered. They watched as their tormentors fell, as the galaxy that had once ruled over them now knelt before them. Some wept, others cheered, but all knew they were witnessing the end of an age. The galaxy, broken and scarred, was left in silence once more. But this time the silence was not of chains. It was the silence of fear, the silence of awe. Every species that had once profited from Earth's suffering now carried a memory they could never erase, the memory of humanity's wrath. And yet, even in victory, the humans did not claim an empire. They did not conquer worlds or demand thrones. They left behind ruins and warnings. They made sure every planet, every leader, every child across the stars understood the truth. Humanity would never bow again. As the Wrath fleet disappeared back into the void, the galaxy trembled. Their banners of black and silver faded into the darkness, leaving only whispers behind. But those whispers carried farther than any fleet. Do not chain Earth. Do not test humanity, for judgment is always waiting.